Welcome to episode 1 of the Dog Training Dogma e-collar series. My name is Jonathan Katz. I am the co-owner and head instructor of Dogma Academy for Dog Trainers located in Mart, Texas. Our goal as a school is to educate and to pass knowledge down and help create the next generation of dog trainer. With over 20 years of experience using e-collars, I bring to you my understanding of how to communicate using a remote training collar. My first disclaimer from this video is going to be that we first need to make sure that the dog understands the behavior before we're ever going to add an e-collar to our training communication. We're first going to teach the dog everything using positive reinforcement before we're ever going to add our e-collar. I have today here to help my metronome. My metronome is here to help demonstrate cadence, and this is going to be a very important tool for this video for us to understand. What is an e-collar? An e-collar or a remote training collar, it is a TENS unit. It is a muscle stimulator. It is a muscle stimulator that gives us the ability to reach out and touch the dog from wherever they are, depending on our range of distance, depending on our collar. This collar I have here is a Dogtra IQ. This is my, I've had this collar for, I want to say maybe, 6 or 7 years. It's my backup collar. And I basically keep it around, but this is the simplest of all of the collars that I have. And so it makes it very simple for communication, that we are going to use this for explanation for today. An e-collar is not a shock collar. An e-collar cannot permanently damage your dog. It can emotionally damage your dog used improperly. Anytime we ever see videos or pictures of dogs that have irritation from, or what they would say, the collar burnt the dog, it's not true. It's because metal against skin will create sores and pressure spots and hot spots. And so anytime we have a collar on and it's too loose and it rubs, it's kind of like wearing loose jewelry. It's like wearing your shoes too loose. As you have rubbing, it's as you're going to cause irritation, as it will then cause an irritant spot on the dog's neck that looks like a burn, but is not a burn. It is just an irritation of the skin. If we ever see dual pressure sores, that's from the collar being too tight. That means that the collar pushed into the dog's neck, or something that we never do, this is a no-no, is we never attach a leash to the e-collar strap. This collar doesn't have a D-ring, but some e-collar straps come with a D-ring. Don't ever attach a leash to that. Technology. Technology has come a very far way from our initial e-collars that came out. E-collars were originally created by hunters. We originally trained dogs using long lines or long leashes. Now, the problem with when you're training a hunting dog, the hunting dog has to be able to move from very far distances away from you. Now, the dog is 200, 300, 400, 500 feet. I now have to walk around with 500 feet of leash. Now, the leash wraps around a tree. Now I go to give a correction. Now I'm correcting a tree. And trees are non-responsive to corrections, right? So the idea is that we needed the ability to reach out and touch the dog. We're going to use modern technology to our advantage because as humans in society, technology is going to always dictate the growth of an industry. And e-collars have come so far. The original e-collars were these gigantic boxes, and the only way to switch the levels, you had to switch out the contact points for different colored contact points. Your button had one big button on it. Your remote had one big button on it, and the antenna was like a tractor trailer antenna, right? This was the beginning of technology. Our technology has come so far that now we have something this small, this tiny. This collar has 400 meters. 400 meters is plenty of distance to be able to train the average dog. My personal e-collar has a mile range. It has an extended antenna. It's because I need to be able to do very long distance communication with my dogs from one end of the field to the other. We also have to deal with distance. When dealing with distance, we have to deal with range. So if we're dealing with a flat ground, then we can get normal range. If we're dealing at ground with ridges, the e-collar can't go through that. So when we're dealing at a longer distance, so when you're trying to reach that 400 distance, you might be having to raise up your remote because, again, technology, they need to see each other. Momentary versus continuous. I personally use momentary as 90% of all of my communication as a dog trainer. A lot of the industry has moved towards using continuous as its communicator, and I personally am not a fan. I want to be able to be very controlling of when the dog feels stimulation versus when dog does not feel stimulation. The reason why I don't really use prong collars is because I can't control 100% of that prong collar communication. If the dog runs out and hits the end of the line, the dog is going to get corrected. The dog's going to correct itself because the way that the dog can feel the stimulation is when the dog reaches the end or feels the end. The reason why I like e-collars is because I can be very strategic as to when the dog feels a stimulation because I have to physically press the button for the dog to feel it. Continuous is brrrr. To me, it's too intense. Even if you lower it down, it's not giving the dog the split second, the quarter of a second that they need in between stimulation to understand what we're communicating. And if it's too intense, because dogs don't have the ability to multitask, dogs can only think about one thing at one time unless taught, a dog is going to focus on that stimulation and not focus on performing the behavior that we're asking. My metronome is going to be my demonstrator. So as you can hear, this is 100 beats per minute. Our standard e-collar communication using momentary is going to be 100 beats per minute. Tap, 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 tap. And when I work with students, I say tap. Every time I say tap, it means that I would have tapped the button once. So the idea is that I'm going to say tap, 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 tap. The dog performed the behavior, the tapping stops. 4 quadrants. There are 4 quadrants of dog training. Positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is the application of a positive stimulus to increase the likelihood of a behavior. Positive meaning that it's something that the dog likes. Positive reinforcement is showing the dog the cookie, asking them to sit, the dog sits, and we give them that cookie. We have now increased the likelihood that the next time that we offer them that cookie and we ask them to sit, that they sit. Positive reinforcement goes hand in hand with negative punishment. Negative punishment is the removal of that cookie to decrease the likelihood of a behavior. I show the dog the cookie. I ask them to sit. They don't sit. I withhold cookie. The idea is that I am withholding something that the dog likes, which the dog perceives as punishment. When it comes to the 4 quadrants, positive doesn't mean it's something good. Positive means you're adding. This is math. You're either adding or you're subtracting. So positive reinforcement, I'm adding, it's a plus sign. I'm adding something that the dog likes, whether it be petting the dog, whether it be saying, good boy, good girl, whether it be giving the dog a cookie, whether it be playing with the dog, adding something that the dog likes to increase the likelihood of a behavior. Now, if we reward the dog, like if we pet the dog for affection's sake, the dog is not then working for that affection, and that's also okay, but we can also withhold our affection and administer it with completion of behaviors for the dog to understand that this is when I get my affection that I so desire. Positive reinforcement and negative punishment go hand in hand. It's adding and subtracting something the dog likes to either increase or decrease the likelihood of a behavior. What behavior are we trying to decrease in that moment that we asked the dog to sit and they didn't sit? We're trying to decrease the chance that next time not listening doesn't get you anything, but listening gets you something. So it's very clear it's yin and yang. The next quadrant we have is negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement being a minus sign. It is the removal of an annoying stimulus to create and shape a desired behavior. This is not going to stop until you do what you needed to do. The dog has no decision as to when the negative reinforcement starts. They only have a decision as to when it stops. So the idea is that the dog is in charge of their own destiny. This is not consequential training. This isn't do it or else, bomb. This is, hey, pay attention, focus, 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 focus. I have been to hundreds of people's homes to help them with their pet dogs. And every time I'm dealing with a family and I'm trying to teach mom, because it's mom that spends the most amounts of the time with the dog, most amounts of time with the kids. I'm trying to teach mom the understanding of negative reinforcement. And she goes, that doesn't work. And I go, it does work. You get annoyed and you stop. You don't escalate. So if this is not annoying, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. If this is not annoying, I can get more and more and more and more and more and more annoying. So the idea is that you have to escalate because it's not what we perceive, it's what the dog perceives. So it's not what we perceive as annoying, it's what the dog perceives as annoying. It is not what we perceive as something of value. Maybe as a human, you really like cheese, but the dog's not a big cheese fan. Maybe the dog likes hot dogs, or maybe the dogs like Cheez-Its. When using treats, we're trying to use something that is of a high value to that dog, because for dogs, treats are like, for us humans, money. We give the dog a cookie, it goes in their mouth, down their throat, into their stomach, give me more. They want more because it's something exciting, it's something fun. If I give you money, you're going to take it, you're going to put it in your pocket, you're going to go spend it on something, you go, okay, give me more. You can always get more. We can't ever get more time, we can always get more money. When it comes to communication, we want to make sure that we're teaching the dog that they manifest the stimulation, they manifest the stimulation turning off. They are in charge of their own destiny, and they are the only ones that can turn the stimulation off. Now, we have to help the dog. We have to keep the dog on leash. In the beginning of foundation of any training, but especially e-collar training, we're always going to have a leash on the dog. We always want a minimum of 6 feet, a maximum of, however long you can hold. I really don't like long lines. If I'm going to use anything longer than a 6 or a 10-foot leash, I'm going to use a flexi leash. Flexi leashes are controversial. To me, they're just mechanical long lines. They're very easy to use. Disclaimer, we never use the rope. If you're going to use a flexi, you only use the belt. Never the rope. The rope will cut your leg open very quickly. The belt, it takes a little bit of time to get a burn from that. But it's another tool that we have to be able to use and understand when to stop, when to let the dog out, when to not let it wrap around, not wrap around the dog's leg. So for today's purpose, we're going to talk about keeping the dog on just a 6-foot leash. The reason why I didn't bring out my e-collar setup today is we're trying to keep this as simple as possible. My goal is to teach you in as short a period of time. It takes me about 10 minutes with a client to explain to them the e-collar for them to understand it. Now, that's also going to be that they have to try it in their hand. Trying it in your hand is very important. I will not work with a client, I will not work with a student that refuses to feel the e-collar. I've had many people that are like, oh, I'll put it on my dog, but I'm not feeling it. If you won't feel it, then it should not go in your dog. Every time I get a brand new e-collar, a system that I've never used before, I will sit there and I will play with it for about a month in my hand. And I want to feel, where is my lowest level? Where does the stimulation start to get higher? And I'm going to play with the levels, and I'm going to figure out how the levels move and how they move up, because every collar is different. Now, collar brands, I use Dogtra, I use e-collar technologies, I like also DT systems and Garmin, and that's basically it. I try to keep it simple, stupid. The KISS method, simple collars. Really expensive collars that offer all these extra functions that don't always work, that are inconsistent. Dogtra's been around for many years. E-collar technology's been around for many years. Garmin, which was previously Tritronics, been around for many years. DT system, same thing. I trust the technology. You're trying to trust technology with your dog training. And I don't trust the technology unless it comes from a reputable brand. If you go on Amazon, anything under $150 to $175, anything below that price point is garbage. It is inconsistent. It'll go from very low to very high. I was giving years ago a seminar in India, and I was basically teaching 30 professional dog trainers how I use the e-collar, and I asked them, what collar does everyone have? And everyone had a Chinese brand collar. And unfortunately, those collars are inconsistent. And I said, well, I can use those collars, but just understand that it's going to be inconsistent. The collar went from 1 to 8, and the dog that I was working on felt it at 1. So I'm like, okay, we're going to use 1. We're going to use the lowest level that the dog responds to, and we're going to train the dog at 1. And after 5 minutes of training the dog yelped, because the e-collar stimulation is inconsistent. So you're trusting technology to communicate with your dog. Why do you buy a Samsung phone or a Apple product? Because those companies have demonstrated reliability through technology. Vibrate versus tone. The collar has an extra function. So this collar here has a pager. This is a vibrate. Vibrate is not a function that we're going to use for training, because no matter how high or low I go, it's always going to feel the same to the dog. Some dogs you press vibrate and they don't even respond. Some dogs you press vibrate and they'll jump out of their skin because it's very startling. Because it is non-adjustable, we cannot use it as communication. I use the pager function as a silent come command. I love to run my dogs on the beach. I love the water. I love the ocean. And so I love to take my dogs running on the beach. Well, sometimes they're at such a far distance and I want to be able to call them, but I don't want to stim them because I want them to first make the decision to be able to come on their own. I don't want them to, I don't want to have to stim them for no reason. So I'm going to go. And then if they decide not to come, now I'm going to start my stimulation. Some collars come with a tone. Some collars can be switched. You can use your tone as a reward marker, like a clicker. Some people use it as a punishing marker. Positive punishment is the application of a painful stimulus to decrease likelihood of a behavior. That is telling the dog no and giving them one hard correction. Because when we use positive punishment, positive meaning that we're adding punishment, it's not positive because it's good. It's positive because we're adding, because this is math. This is adding and subtracting. Positive punishment should be a singular learning experience. Once. The dog should learn in that moment. If we have to continue to correct a behavior, the dog does not understand why they're being corrected. Let's go over how to turn the collar on. So we have here, some of the collars have buttons. This one, like a lot of the cheaper units on the, and again, not cheap by way of quality, but cheap by way of price. I think this is like $150 or $175 on Amazon. Again, I've had this collar for, I want to say maybe 8 or 9 years, And other than switching out batteries, I always keep this as my backup. It always goes with me on road trips. If I was going to manage all of my dogs together, I want to be able to have an e-collar on all of them, even if I don't need it at the moment. It's always good to have it. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So we're going to turn it on. We have little red dot and we have little red dot. We are going to touch it together and you will see that the light will turn green. Now the remote is always on. It basically goes into sleep mode unless you're pressing the button. So the remote will hold a charge for a long time. The collar we have to charge every day. But if you're going to charge one, you want to get into the habit of charging both. We want to make sure that our collar is charged so that we can use it when we need it. Because if we only go and get the collar when the dog's being bad, the dog will listen, but it'll be because of the e-collar that the dog listens, not because we've used the e-collar to condition behaviors. For me, an e-collar are training wheels on a bicycle. We only use them until we learn how to balance. Once we learn how to balance, we shouldn't need this anymore. And my goal is to not need this. Trust me. If I didn't need an e-collar to create 100% reliability with my dogs, I wouldn't use it. I use it because I need it to create consistency. I use it because I need it to keep my dogs safe. For anyone that's an e-collar naysayer, bottom line, these are to keep our dogs safe. This is to keep your dogs safe. This is for us because dogs don't know any better. It's for us to keep our dogs under control and for us to teach our dogs rules and boundaries, because as a good dog owner, we have to be the one to teach the rules and boundaries. Now, when we put the collar in our hand, I see some people will put the collar on their neck. You see some trainers are teaching on the neck. Our neck skin is very soft. Remember, we put prong collars and big chains and collars that dangle on our dogs' necks. Like I wear a necklace. This is it's a Tiffany's whistle. When people ask me questions about it, it says, Uzi, rest in peace. It's how I recall my dog from heaven. So, people are like, what's with the whistle? I'm like, this is how I recall my dog from heaven, right? It's a constant memory. I'll never forget about the dog, but, I think about him every day, but still it's a constant reminder. This is from his retirement from all of his hard work. And the dog was my best friend, right? But you're not going to always have a whistle on you. I always have a whistle on me, but not everyone's going to have a whistle on you. This is going to help us save our dog's life and keep our dogs under control and safe. Unfortunately, there are countries that want to ban these. They don't understand that you're banning them from the small percentage of people that are misusing them. And you're actually hurting the dogs and the mass majority of people that want to do right by their dogs. They don't want to give their dogs too high of a correction. They don't want to treat it as a shock collar. What they want to do is they just want to help their dogs feel free and not have to be tethered. I feel bad for dogs that are stuck on leash. I feel bad for dogs that are tethered. My dogs have the freedom. My dogs have crossed, Puma and Cougar have traveled multiple times cross country with never being on a leash. They come out at rest stops. They go potty. They don't range away from me. They don't even need e-collars because they are trained dogs. Once you have trained the dog and created consistency, because we've been consistent with our communication, now we shouldn't need it anymore. Okay? So we're going to put it in the palm of my hand. So our neck skin is very soft. The palm of our hand is closer to the skin on a dog's neck. Okay? So I'm going to use the palm of my hand. And I'm going to start on 0. I'm going to start on 0 and I'm going to slowly move up until I can feel it. And if you see my finger, I'm just slowly, incrementally turning it up until I feel it. Okay, so now I start to feel it. I actually don't feel it in the palm. I actually feel it up in my thumb right here, right? So it doesn't hurt. It's just a little bit annoying. It's just a kind of like a tingling sensation. I'm at 22. Now, this is a mild-mannered, like low disposition to medium disposition dogs. This is used on smaller dogs, dogs that are a little bit more sensitive. I don't use very high stimulation, so I don't need high stim. Every so often you'll get dogs that are anomalies that are extremely strong and extremely powerful that do need like medium to stubborn disposition collars. My dogs will respond perfectly to this. Okay. So I feel at about 22. Some of the other Dogtras or e-collar technologies for medium disposition dogs, I feel at about anywhere from like 14 to 16. This one is a little bit softer. But again, this allows me to range with, so it has 100 levels. I don't really like collars that only have like click, 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 click 8 levels, because that doesn't give me the ability to micro adjust and find that exact perfect level. Types of collars we have here is a traditional collar strap. This is the collar that comes with the e-collar. It is a traditional buckle. When we put this collar on the dog, it needs to be as high up on the neck as possible. We need to be able to fit in 2 fingers, no more and no less. Because the e-collar will slide and the e-collar will move around, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're not going to get those pressure sores that I was talking about, or as the vet will call them, hot spots, right? They're just pressure sores from the metal rubbing up against the skin, right? So what I always do is I demonstrate to my clients, I do that, and you see how that chafes up my arm? That was just from 2 seconds of doing that. Think about the dog wearing it all day. So I like to periodically throughout the day open it up, move it around the neck, put it on a different side, different position. The only places that I really don't like the collar to be is directly on top of the spine or directly over the dog's throat. Usually we try to put it off to the side of the throat, the side of the dog's ear, anywhere from like 3 o'clock, a 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and then like a 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock position on the dog's neck. Our other option are bungee collars. Thank God for bungee collars, because bungee collars saved us. What happens is as the dog is working, as their neck expands, as the muscles in their neck are going to then make the collar tight. What this allows about an inch of give to allow it to flex with the dog's neck. It's a lot simpler. I fly a lot, teaching and judging, and the shoes that I fly with have the same, it's the exact same stuff. It's my cord, because as you fly, your feet will expand, they'll contract. And so I hated the feeling of having tight laces and then having to like open up your shoes. So this just opens up with it. It flexes with the dog's neck. So these are the collars that I choose, but this is what your collar is going to come with. Go on Amazon or find a local, go on Etsy, find a local person, find someone that makes a bungee strap. We sell them here at the pro shop at the school. Find them and get one, because this is really, it's also going to make it very simple to just slide on the dog's head and we pull these little bunny ears and then it just goes tight. Original conditioning. When we show the dog the e-collar, we want the dog to perceive the e-collar as something fun. We want the dog to perceive the e-collar as something exciting. Everyone's dog loves the leash. When you pull your leash out and the dog gets excited, I want my dog to perceive the e-collar the same way. I want my dog to see the e-collar and go, oh my God, this is so exciting. We're about to do something fun. As opposed to you show the dog the e-collar and they go, oh no, you're going to hurt me. That's not the goal. The goal is that the dog sees it as their freedom. This is the collar that allows me to go and be off leash and be all these amazing places. The e-collar is a phenomenal tool because it allows you and your dog to have the freedom and not have to be tethered at all times. So put the collar on the dog and take the dog hiking on leash. We do not take the dog off leash in the beginning, the foundation. Take the dog swimming. Just put it on and take the dog for a walk. Put it on and just give the dog cookies. Put it on and throw a ball in the backyard. We want the e-collar to be associated as something fun, as something exciting. And so I'm usually going to spend about a week or two just putting it on the dog and playing with the dog. I will put the e-collar, I have a tiny little strap, I'll put it on my 12-week-old puppy. It's not on. I don't even have the remote with me. I just put it on so that they right away start to associate it. They're going out and doing something fun. They're going out to do agility. The e-collar is something good. The e-collar is not something bad. The reason why I'm spending all this time making this video is to educate people on how powerful this tool can be to help us have a stronger bond and a stronger relationship with our dog. It also changes the tide of strength to handler ratio. So when we have a smaller handler and a really big dog, we don't need the physical strength to communicate with the dog. We have technology that allows us to communicate. Instead of me having to yell really far to get someone's attention on the other side of the school, I can just pick up my phone and I can call them and I can talk to them quicker than my voice will travel, and I don't have to strain my voice. When I'm communicating with an e-collar, I never raise my voice. I talk to the dogs very softly. One of my huge pet peeves is dog training is people that are screaming at their dogs. It's the boy that cried wolf. It's the household. You're raised in a household where mom and dad are always screaming. You're desensitized to it. It doesn't mean anything. When I raise my voice, my dogs come running. Daddy, what do you need? Something? Timmy's stuck in a well? Something exciting. Because raising a voice was a sense of urgency, not a sense of punishment or bad. So instead of raising my voice, I just raise the dial. Just a little bit, little increments. 1, 2 levels at a time. 1, 2 levels at a time. Right? Now, our initial cadence is going to be 100 beats per minute. Tap, 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 tap. Once we have the dog understanding the stimulation and how to turn it off, we will then raise it. 110. And then we can raise it 120. Again, this is annoying, but when does the dog turn off the annoyance? Once the behavior is completed. So when we're trying to find the dog's level, we need to find the lowest level that the dog responds to. You're going to see episode 2 of this series is going to be me actually introducing the e-collar to a dog that has never felt it, and for you to be able to read that dog's and find that dog's baseline, find where the dog feels at the lowest level the dog feels. Because as humans, we have verbal communication skills. I can be like, oh, I feel it at 22, and I can tell you that, and I can convey that. The dog doesn't have the ability to do that, but the dog offers micro expressions. It's as simple as an ear twitch, an eye look, a blink. It's so subtle and so minute, and the mistake that a lot of trainers make and a lot of people make is they look for these big responses. It should never be big responses. Every single time I'm working with someone and they hand me their e-collar remote, I always turn it down. 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 I'm saying it louder for the people in the back. I always turn the remote down because everyone has it too high. Now, there's about 10% of people that have it at the right amount. And I'll always mark it and I'll tell them, I'll go down. Oh, I'll go back up. Okay, yep, you were right there. But most of the time, people have it too high. If we ever see dogs fight the stimulation, a lot of times because it's too high, you're now inducing pain response. And now the dog is kicked into higher level of drive. And now the dog doesn't want to listen. We use the lowest level that the dog will respond to. Now, figuring out the lowest level the dog responds to will also depend on conflicting motivators. The more conflicting the motivators, the harder it is for the dog to pay attention using your primary reinforcer, which are food or toys or verbal or physical praise. We now, the question is when do we add the e-collar? Jonathan, when do you start the e-collar? My answer is always going to be the dog asks me for it. And you say, how does the dog ask you for it if the dog can't talk to you? The day that I take the dog out and I offer them food or toys and they go, nah, Dad, I want to go over here and check this out because that's more exciting to me, is the day the dog gets an e-collar. Is the day that the dog starts to understand negative reinforcement, but negative reinforcement is always followed by positive reinforcement. So what we're doing is we're negative reinforcing the dog into the behavior, and then the second the dog is done, click, cookie, pet, good boy, good girl, sit. The second the dog's butt hits the ground, good boy, good girl, cookie. We have to give the dog cookies. You have to pay the dog. Pay the dog. Otherwise, there is nothing in it for them. That old adage of they just got to do it because I told them to. That's okay once the dog understands the behavior. We're talking about teaching and creating consistency, timing, consistency, and reinforcement. And we also have to go through all the stages of learning. We have to go through the teaching phase. We have to go through the correction phase. We have to go through the distraction phase, and we have to go through the generalization phase. And unless we've gone through all 4 phases, we have not properly taught that dog. To find that dog's working level, now, once we found that dog's lowest baseline level, that does not necessarily mean that it is the dog's lowest working level. Lowest working level is whatever the dog responds to. So the dog might feel it at 2, but the dog doesn't respond, meaning I hear something in the background. Like I kind of hear it in the background, but it's not really annoying. So what we do is we raise the stimulation a little bit, like a volume, until you're like, oh, well, now that's annoying. Oh, okay. Yep. That'll make me go and change the battery out in the, smoke detector, right? I can't tell you what you perceive as annoying. When you get in your modern car and you don't put on your seatbelt and you start driving, what happens? The car starts beeping at you. And most of the time, it's like a really annoying loud beep. And then some of the time now they go, and they're like, ah, just put your seatbelt on. Public service, like PSA, please wear your seatbelt, children, okay? But the idea is that if we wear our seatbelts, it won't do it. But the only way to get that annoying tone to turn off is to wear your seatbelt. So what does that tone actually do? It actually trains you and conditions you to just get in the car and just close your seatbelt. Put on your seatbelt because then you'll never hear the annoyance. Our first behavior that we're going to teach with the e-collar is come. The most important command that a dog can learn is come. Come to the owner for safety. Come and be by me. Come be next to me. I hear some trainers talk about that's the last behavior that I teach. To me, that is the most important behavior that is going to save that dog's life. If someone said, Jonathan, I can only afford to do 1 lesson with you. I only have enough time, whatever the case may be, to do 1 lesson with you. What should we teach? We should teach the dog to come and have a reliable come recall command. So the first thing we're going to teach is teach the dog to come to me, stay with me. Basically loose leash walking, come and stay by my side. Again, this takes a lot of finesse. You're not going to see instant response to this collar. It's going to take about 10 minutes of walking back and forth and the dog understanding that the only way to turn this off is to turn around and start coming to you. Now, every behavior we're going to stimulate until the dog completes the behavior, except for come command. Our come command, we're going to until the dog turns around, starts coming to us. Good boy, good girl, woo! The dog comes and gets rewarded. If we stimulate the dog all the way to us, it's like when you tell the kids to go clean their room and you go clean your room, go clean your room, go clean your room, go clean your room. And they get up and start walking towards their room. We don't follow them to the door and go, continue, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room. They're making an active effort to do it. Now, if at any moment they stop and the dog veers off, we start stimulating again. Clean your room, clean your room, clean your room, clean your room. The idea is the dog is in charge of the stimulation themselves. Our stimulation needs to be low. It needs to be a very slight communication. And then once the dog understands, as more pressure will be added, as the dog will eventually learn to thrive through that pressure. The positive-only community, which does not exist. It does not exist because you can't use positive reinforcement without negative punishment. You can't use only positive reinforcement and ever put the dog on leash, because the leash is an adversive. By holding the dog back from something that they want to do, that positive only would mean that the dog should be able to use all their own impulses to control themselves. No impulses controlled by human or other factor. The dog controls themselves, and the dog does what's good for them. Positive only doesn't work because comes hand in hand is negative punishment, the withholding of that cookie. So you could say that I'm not a balance trainer. To me, a balance trainer uses all four quadrants and uses them as applicable to each situation or each environment. But the main idea is that you can't just use positive reinforcement and negative punishment to train a dog, because we have conflicting motivators in life. And we have things, a car coming at a dog is very distracting. Dogs don't have the ability to multitask. So the dog can only focus on the car, but the dog can feel the e-collar. We can reach out and touch them from wherever they are. So the idea of using the e-collar as communication, it's also consistent. It always feels the same. The e-collar is a non-directional stimulation as opposed to a leash and a prong collar, which is a physical direction. It is a directional stimulation that comes from the leash. The reason why I prefer e-collars is I can keep it as low as it needs to be, and I can raise it as high as it needs to be, and the dog learns that they are in control of that level themselves. For my dogs, for the way that we use the e-collar means go. The e-collar doesn't mean stop. It means go, do it better, do it faster, do it quicker. It doesn't mean no, stop, don't, bad. It means do it, do it, do it. More passion, more footwork, more energy, more passion, quicker. Gas pedal, not brake. I hope this was educational, guys. If anyone has any questions, reach out to us. We have open enrollment for our school. Please let me know if you enjoyed this. Please leave a like, a comment, a share. Please let us know what other educational videos you'd like for us to see. And visit our website, dogmaacademyfordogtrainers.com. And we will see you on the next episode.